Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today works as an actor. He's a designer. He's a filmmaker, musician, writer, and he's also the host of Nerd Nite Orlando. Please welcome the talented Ricardo Williams. What's going on, man?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to hear all those nice descriptions of me. I don't do them all at the exact same time, so I'm not as overwhelmed as that sentence may appear.
Well, and we'll definitely talk about that because I'm kind of curious on how the balance is and if it's just kind of how your mind works and all that stuff. I really appreciate you coming on and having a lunch break with me. What's your usual go-to lunch or sandwich?
Oh man, that's a great question. I actually just ate 6 peanut butter sandwiches, so I guess that would be my go-to.
6 peanut butter sandwiches?
Yeah, it was a slow morning, so yeah, it's basically that. Like I literally will like get a loaf of bread and then just make the whole loaf of bread into a bunch of peanut butter sandwiches and then eat the whole thing. And today I only had 6, so I had some left over, so I'll probably have that tomorrow morning.
Okay. So I have questions on this. Okay, so one, full loaf of bread. What kind of bread are you using?
Usually like honey wheat or just like a regular wheat bread. Nothing too serious.
Okay.
I mean,
And
one
then
time.
are you make?
I have been known to use white bread sometimes, but I prefer, sometimes I'm at the mercy of whatever's at the store. I'm always like rushing to get stuff and rushing to do this. But yeah.
And when you say peanut, like, are you making them like? Is it when you say your definition of 6 of them? Are we talking like? When you say that, are you saying like one piece of bread, peanut butter folded over, and that's a sandwich?
No.
Or are you saying like
bread,
grabbing
man.
2 of them?
Yeah.
12 slices of
12
bread.
slices of bread, 6
and
sandwiches, peanut butter in the middle.
And are you cutting them? Are you cutting them as well, or are you just eating them whole straight like that?
I'm like the most like civilized caveman when it comes to stuff like that. Like when I was younger, I used to like be very particular and kind of OCD about cutting it into 4s, making these cute little like finger food type sandwiches. I don't know where I got that from because my parents didn't do that. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't do that. I think I might have picked it up from like TV or maybe I saw it in a movie or something. And I used to do that when I was up until I was like 15 or 16 years old. I would like pack lunches for like camping trips when I was a Boy Scout or like, just traveling. And I'd like make these sandwiches and like cut them in perfect little 4s. And somehow I don't know exactly when it happened, but I just stopped doing that. And now I'm just like slab of peanut butter bread, slap it together, and I just eat it. And I'm just like, oh, all right, now I can go do what I got to do.
So you basically, for you, in a way, I would say it's more substance. It's just about like, hey, this is good. I'll eat it. Substance. It's quick. It's easy. And you kind of go that route. But you actually literally eat a whole loaf of bread?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. Not. I mean, sometimes what I'll do is I'll make the whole thing. Because I kind of like the act of it. Something about the act is very kind of cathartic, I think. Like even when you're like making an actual meal, like I love the process, like I'm not big on microwaves in a general sense just because I don't like when the process is removed. And this is kind of a sidebar, but I was having this debate with someone who just last week in New York City, and we were having the age-old debate about AI and that process and how it's the inroads that AI has made into like every industry. And I make my own movies. I make a lot of short films. And this person was saying how wouldn't you like it if AI could just do the titles? I do this process where I make like titles like on camera, like basically I create a process. I don't want to give away the secret sauce, but I basically make stuff. I make special effects, but I do it in camera. And he's like, well, wouldn't it be easier because it takes you like days to do that? And I'm just kind of like, I know, but I enjoy it. Like I make movies because I like making movies. If I come in and have the AI do the thing that I like to do, then what is left for me? That I just say like I slap my name on it? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like the things that I enjoy doing, I don't want AI doing. Like I don't want AI making my sandwiches. I don't want AI making pasta for me. I don't want AI making my movies. You know what I want AI to do? I wouldn't mind AI cleaning up the mess afterwards. That would be nice. If AI could like wash the dishes, take out the trash, maybe do the laundry. That's fine. But in terms of the things that I enjoy doing, I don't. Why are we giving that up? And something about just making the sandwiches, I enjoy that. Like I like to just make that whole loaf. It takes me about 10 minutes. I take my time. I usually listen to the news while I do it, and then I'll eat a couple of them, 6 or 7, maybe the whole loaf, depending on how I'm feeling. And sometimes I save the rest for later, and that's 15 minutes of my day right there, and I enjoy those moments.
Okay, so I'm not gonna harp on this because I could definitely talk a lot about this. I only have two questions left on this topic. One, the heels or the butt of the bread. Do you eat
Oh yeah.
those, and then do you flip them inside out? You flip them inside out.
No. So when I make it the way the loaf looks, so you could almost kind of like put the peanut butter in the middle and then slide the loaf right back
Okay.
in the container or the bag or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
But no, yeah, I'm definitely not a snob about the ends. That's one thing I do remember from
And
my
then
childhood is a lot of adults that I remember growing up around, they didn't eat the ends of the bread, and I don't understand why. It's just bread, I don't. It's just this. It's the
correct.
same.
Correct. No,
Yeah.
I eat it. I eat it. I usually will make a grilled cheese or something with it, or I do the same thing. I flip it. I flip them so that way it doesn't look like the heel, so it looks nice and pretty, especially if you're
Oh
making
yeah.
grilled cheese or
So
something with
you're
it.
a pro duck. That's what the
And
pros
then the
do.
last, yeah, well, I make a few sandwiches. The last question I have is, where do you hold? Like, do you put them in a Ziploc, or do you put them right back in the same bag holder and then just close it up and
I
throw
have
it in
I
the
have a couple
fridge?
of like
Is that kind of what you do?
well they're actually I think one of them actually might be a Ziploc branded container, but it's a reusable container. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean people from our generation know that any type of container is called a Tupperware. When in reality that's just the brand
Correct.
name, but other brands make something
Yep. Yep.
similar.
Like Coke.
Exactly. Yeah, like oh grab me a Coke and
It's
it's
like
like
Coke.
actually
Yep.
this it's
Mhm.
a that would
Yep.
be a Dr. Pepper, or whatever.
Yep,
Uh,
exactly. All right, so I want to hit on a few things. I want to definitely talk about a few things with you. I know like for the past 11 years or so, Orlando's been having, Nerd Night, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I wanted to tell people a little bit about that. Can you tell people who haven't heard of what Nerd Night is? Can you give them an idea of what it's about
Absolutely,
and what it
yeah.
is?
So Nerd Night is an event that I host, where we bring together guest speakers at every single event, and each one of those speakers they nerd out about a topic they're passionate about. They make these 15 to 20 minute presentations, and essentially the presentation is something that they love that they're essentially breaking down the science of. And the idea for me is that they come in well prepared, of course, nerd out about something, and the audience walks away having learned something new. Traditionally, we have three speakers. Sometimes it's been less, sometimes it's been more. But again, the idea is that we want to remind folks that learning is fun, and we want the audience to have walked away learning something new. And learning is fun. So it's like I always say, like we're not telling them learning is fun, we're reminding them. I
Yeah.
love learning about new things all the time, and so Nerd Night has been this great gift. I see it as like this like great privilege that I get to organize and host this thing. I get to, I always tell people like if I wasn't putting it on, I would be front row at as many events as I could go to. And but the beauty of it too is that Nerd Night, didn't like, me and my peers started Nerd Night in Orlando, but we didn't create the brand as a whole. Nerd Night started in 2004 in Boston, and it's been going strong in nearly 100 cities all around the world. So I mean, every time I'm traveling, I'll stop in and see what their Nerd Night is doing, and it's always fun because it's a different host, obviously, different style, different vibe, but the point of it is all the same. And the people that I've met all around that have been to a Nerd Night or hosted a Nerd Night, they're some of the most wonderful people, fun to hang out with, grab a beer with, just talk and chill, and then some of them are just absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm like, the actor playing a character hosting my Nerd Night. These guys are like, oh yeah, well, I was working on this research, and we're trying to fix this problem and that problem, and I think I might go to space next year. And I'm like, what? I was in a orthodontist commercial last week. Like this is like we are not the same. Like what you're doing is important. What I'm doing is like, trying to help my bank account keep going. Like so. But yeah, it's been really a gift to be a part of the Nerd Night movement, and then to like really shoulder this thing in Orlando for so long. It's I've done like, you know, and I also do a lot of the special events too. Like I've hosted at Comic Con. I've done like corporate events too, where basically where we take Nerd Night and bring it there. I did South by Southwest before. It's just like yeah, it's just awesome. And then the South by Southwest one, I got to go before Neil deGrasse Tyson. That was like really cool, and he was um, interesting to say the least. Just a interesting celebrity type. Like he made it very clear that he's the smartest guy in the room, and that's the vibe that we all took from him was that yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's been this real
Okay.
great gift to do this thing, and every once in a while, like every year, for the last couple years, we've been taking breaks during the summer so that I can do other events elsewhere, and it's been a nice way to kind of rejuvenate me because I'm always just so exhausted. Like it's a lot of events. I've done like close to 150 events in the last 11 years, and organizing them,
Yeah.
hosting them. You got to write material, and and deal with the venues and the speakers. Maybe you got an audience member that didn't like what you said, or you going back and forth with that person. I get hate mail sometimes. People have emailed me and said things like, "I didn't like what you said, Ricardo. That was really inappropriate." Like I mean, I remember making a joke about masturbation one time and like tying it into like a like whatever the speaker was talking about. Like I always like try to tie the jokes into what we're like. It's a good lead in to what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And this lady sent me a message that was like, "I didn't like what you had to say. That was inappropriate." I'm like, "Ma'am, we're in a bar with like adults. Like inappropriate. Like what are you talking about?" Like I mean, I didn't say that to her, but it's like what are you
Yeah.
saying? Like what I'm not at like a middle school or something talking to a bunch of kids, like trust me, the things these people say to me
Yeah.
are way more serious than my like, highbrow joke about masturbation.
Yeah. No, that's funny. How do you decide on who's going to present and what the topic is? Like, is there like you go a certain theme or a certain topic when you kind of start selecting who's going to talk and when?
So yeah, there is a bit of a kind of an art form to it. I wouldn't say it's a science because I've had some of my peers say that, but the biggest thing is for me personally, the way I like to organize in them, I prefer that the three talks are as different as possible, but not just within the content of the material, but also the personality of the speaker. So I've had the good fortune of knowing a lot of the speakers, so like I know them well enough to know how different they are than the other person. Um, but when there are events that are themed, which aren't that many really, I mean, I think people think there are a lot, just because I usually have a theme in my introduction and the monologue. But um, for most of the time, there's no theme. They're just the three different talks, different. I just want people to kind of come and have a good time. But we've had space themed events. We've had events where we talk about women's issues. We've had events where we talked about politics, and some of them are like explicit themes. Like if it's a space themed one, I'm going to come in an astronaut suit. In the politics theme, it's not necessarily. I'm not going to show up like Ralph Nader or anything. It's not that serious. But there is going to be like, well, we're going to do that around election period. Like just because that's on the top of everybody's mind, and not really to sway anybody, just
Yeah.
because like I think people are so afraid to talk about politics in those sense because they're just afraid of taking a side. Like, oh, if I take this guy's side, then those people that like the other guy aren't going to come to my show. And it's like, well, actually, we're just talking about it. Like no different than like the Daily Show. Like you would think that watching the Daily Show that like there's a huge left wing bias, and there's not. I mean, I've been years I've watched Jon Stewart make fun of Biden, make fun of Obama, and there was even a time where Obama called Jon Stewart to the White House to basically try to like, hey, what are you doing here? We're trying on the same team.
I have one more. I have one more kind of nerd night question, and then I got questions about like just your life and everything else that you do. So, is there like a favorite topic that you like to nerd out to, or nerd out about, like that you've already enjoyed, or anything like either one that you've enjoyed being able to do, or one that's like totally surprised you in your time of being host? That you're like, wow, I never would have thought this would be a topic that I would be talking about on Nerd Night.
Well, for me, whenever I do a talk or the things that I like talking about movies.
Yeah,
I like talk. We
yeah.
had a really great speaker talk about sound design years ago, and it's funny because she had reached out to me and she was like, "Does anybody ever talk about film production at Nerd Night?" And I'm like, "Actually, no. That's so interesting that you say that. You would think because I make movies and I have so many friends that work on movies, you would think, but none of them have ever wanted to do a talk or anything." And this is somebody I didn't know at the time. I mean, we became friends afterwards, but I was like, I would love for you to come in and do a talk on sound design. And then I had somebody else do a talk on uh, event photography, which seems kind of like event photography. What the fuck, And then she like opened it up to like how to take the best selfie and like framing and composition and all this stuff. And I'm just kind of like, oh, this is good. This is nerdy stuff. Like, so that
Yeah.
stuff always kind of like excites me just for my own sensibilities. But I also like it because it's so rare. But at the same time, we always get a lot of people that want to talk about things as they pertain to like space travel or space exploration. Obviously, because in Florida we're close to the Kennedy Space Center, so that's always an exciting topic. And to be fair, I do love those talks a lot, but sometimes I try to space them out because I don't want it to be like space person, space person, space person, astronomer, astronaut. I collect moon rocks. It might be just too much. But at the same time, it's like people love
Yeah.
it. And then when we do space themed events, people go like, it's the room is always packed no matter what venue we're in. Whether it's something as like tight as Stardust or something as big as the Abbey, or when we do the Science Center. Like it's people love those topics. So it's a toss up between that, like the space stuff, and for my own personal enjoyment, I love talking about film
Yeah.
production.
I know. So Nerd Nite's one night, and obviously, like I said in the intro, you're a writer, actor, filmmaker. I know you don't do all these things at one time, but can you kind of give me, because I've always wanted to ask you this. We've known each other for many years, just because I've been passing. I've been fortunate enough to have you do some modeling for me, in some deli fresh shreds and stuff like that, which obviously always invited for. And so but you are always out and about and doing something. So can you kind of give me an idea, like currently right now, because obviously we'll do a moment of time because of the different hats you wear. What is a typical day for you
Oh man.
besides eating a half a loaf of sandwiches? Like are you acting, writing? Because I know you write, I know you act. We'll talk about
Yeah,
filmmaking,
yeah.
but I'm just kind of curious, like what exactly on your day to day, like what's a typical day to day for
Yeah,
you?
that's actually a wonderful question. And even as you were asking it, I was like, well, I was getting, should I explain what today is like? Because today is way different than yesterday. And yesterday was way different than the day before. Well, yesterday was a holiday, but like the last 3 days of
Yeah.
like were radically different days, and they're just so different. The two, all right, so I'll
Yeah.
break this down. These are the two things that are always consistent. The day always begins with the workout. Absolutely. Like that whole bit about the peanut butter sandwiches, that's afterwards. Like that's not the first thing in the morning. Workout is the first thing in the morning, and the second is a lot of writing. So what I'll do is, if I'm writing stuff about like material for like a future event, I always do that kind of stuff in the morning, and it's like bits here, bits there, and the next day I'll go back to it and then put it all together, and then keep every morning like it's that like there's always a part of the day that's devoted to writing material, or like if it's like writing a story or something for the news and like something like that, like it's those things that start early in the day, and I always like do that kind of stuff in the morning. Something about just like, and I'm just like it's like fresh in my mind when I wake up, and like when I'm working out, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about like how do I put this line here, that line there, like oh that would be great here. It's basically kind of like when you're like throwing a bunch of ideas on the wall and like a whiteboard, and you're just kind of like moving things around. That's what happens in my head when I'm
Yeah.
working out. So once I'm done with a workout, that's it. Now, so here's the kicker to your question about a normal day. So like if I book a job where I'm acting on a set and the call time is like 6, maybe even 5 o'clock, then my whole day is pretty much that unless they wrap you early. And so on days like that, then I've just given up my morning workout, and I have to like do it in the end of the day, or like it throws everything off. And actually, as much as I love, being able to make a decent amount of money to do a very little amount of work, let's be honest. I mean, acting for commercials is not exactly like, it's not Hamlet, so it's not as involved emotionally. So you're just kind of like you show up, you do the thing, and you make a nice amount of cash. But that's not every day, and that's not every week sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
I actually hate that. I actually don't like it at all. But it's like it allows me to sustain doing other things. So like I have to give up the morning routines that I love, that are kind of like slow build, and I can like put my thoughts together and write material for an event or a future show, and or a story. But it's like a give and take. So that's what I mean. Like some days are different.
Yeah.
Um, Now,
Yeah.
if it's an event where, or excuse me, a day where like it's like I'm doing meetings, like online meetings for like things that I want to do, that I want to plan, or like making calls like, hey, I need money for this, hey, I need money for that, calling somebody like a sponsor or something like that. Like I do a lot of like, I don't necessarily like to email for that kind of stuff. I think it's a bit more personal. I would prefer to be in person. I'm just not always in the same town as the
Yeah.
company or the person. Um, but yeah, they need a personal touch, and I feel like sometimes emails aren't always the best for that. So, I'm quick to get
No,
on
I
the
agree
horn.
with that.
I'm like, hey, and we're working on this, and we'd love for you to be a part of it, and yada yada yada. So sometimes the day starts like that, but on a day that's still after the workout. If as long as it's not a shoot day, the thing about the shooting shooting days throw everything off. They throw everything off, and it's just like, you know. But yeah, so those are examples of the day, but no day is the same. So it's kind of hard to answer that question in like a literal sense. But
No, no, and I expected that. I expected you to be able to give me a general. I figured
yeah,
that. So I do have some follow ups. When you work out, do you listen to music or no
sometimes
music? Because
if
okay,
it's outdoors, which I typically like to do outdoors, if I'm closer to like an area where there's like less people around. So if I'm like running and doing push-ups in a park, sorry, excuse me. Uh, if I'm running and doing push-ups in a park and it's quiet, then yes. I typically put the headphones in when I want to block something out. So the other day, actually, I did like a mid afternoon workout, which is like really hard at this time of year with the heat.
yeah,
So I was like doing sit ups, push ups, and pull ups because the pull up bars are at the park. So I'm doing it there, and these kids keep walking by, and they're just like everybody's so loud, and there's like a little kid birthday party over in the pavilion, and it's like all this stuff. So then I put the headphones in, like the little earbuds in, just to kind of like just to block things out, just because it's just like I don't want like the sound of screaming and or whatever they're talking about, Chappelle Rowan or whatever hot new singer is out, or I don't know, whatever kids are talking about, to just like be in my head.
yeah.
So I'll put my earbuds in and I'll put my own, cool new singer. For me, it's like, Celine Dion or Britney Spears or something. Like I pick things from my childhood that I still like, like you get to a certain age and
Yeah,
you're just
no,
like,
I get that.
I don't really want to know any new singers. Like I don't need that. Like my college roommate used to hate me because I used to listen to Celine Dion every morning. I would wake up, literally roll out of bed, and just start doing push-ups. And I didn't have headphones. I just like turned the speaker box that I had on and just like play Celine Dion CDs. Power of Love was a big one for me. To
Interesting.
Love You More was a big one. And he fucking hated it because I would do this at like 6 in the morning before my 7 o'clock class. He hated me to death. He like could
Talk about
yeah. We actually
waking up to
switched
Celine.
roommates for that. We switched roommates because he was like, I can't handle you, and he was like very happy to get me the hell out of there. So he got a nice boring
That's
roommate for the remainder of this semester, and I got to listen to Celine Dion.
that's
And the thing is, my new roommate after that, he would get so loaded the night before. No amount of Celine Dion would wake him up. He would have like a 40 ounce by his computer. This guy was a genius. He would like write these like A+ law papers, and then just get really drunk, pass out for like 15 hours, and then have like a 11 a.m. class, and just go to class, come out, get an A, and then get loaded again. So we were a perfect match,
that's
actually.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I know you mentioned acting, and I know that, and I could definitely say congrats. I know you one of the commercials you did won an Emmy on it for the vaccine PSA,
Yeah.
which was
Know
awesome. So
about that.
congratulations to that,
Thanks, dude.
which is very cool. And then I also wanted to kind of chat with you, and we'll talk a little bit about how the process of how difficult the process is, because and we can kind of talk about that now, and then kind of talk about your film because I kind of wanted to talk about Ronin as well. So tell me a little bit about, because one, obviously a lot of people have a fear when it comes, especially like when they're small business stuff like that, fear of failure. And one thing that has got to be really tough for you is the fact that when you're trying to go out for commercials and everything like that. I mean, obviously, yeah, you want to be able to get people to automatically be like, "Hey, Ricardo, we want you," and then that's it, and you're casted. But a lot of times you're kind of going through a whole process
Yeah,
of
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
go, and there's got to be levels of failure and levels of you going out for 5 or 6 commercials and maybe getting one of them or not getting any of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, like mindset, and how you kind of handle those things? Because
Yeah, yeah.
as a small business owner or a creative, when you're coming up with ideas and you think they're great or you think you did great and they don't, and it doesn't work out, that's always a tough
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
to kind of deal with. And that kind of, that can kind of set you back, or at least maybe make you a little bit more timid because you don't want to deal with the failure.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the process of like just general auditioning has changed so much in the last 10 years. I've been doing it off and on since I was 21 ish. Yeah, 2021. And I'm in my 30s now, my late 30s. So I've been doing it a pretty long time. And I've always done like the same level of thing. I've never done anything really huge. So, I mean, I've been around things pretty huge, but I've never done anything really huge. So, like, but the small things that I do, it definitely has gotten really different because, for one, so much of it is online now. So it's just a lot of that process, which is just like you're just like submitting something into the ether. Like, is that person even going to see it? And then after COVID, everyone was doing self tapes. So with self tapes, it's like they're really not going to see that shit, because they're getting like thousands upon thousands of things from all over the country. It used to be like, don't submit to something unless you live in this city, and maybe in the same state. Like you could drive to Tampa, Atlanta, not Atlanta,
Yeah.
Miami. Well, sometimes Atlanta, depends. Yeah, but like for like smaller things, like if you're just gonna be like if they're just like booking a bunch of extras for like the next Dexter show or whatever, the prequel or whatever, they don't want people that live in Orlando because they don't want something to happen where you show up late or you're driving down, or they're like, don't try to submit to this if you do not live in Miami. Uh, but for like longer productions that you have a bit of a bigger role, they can get submissions from all over the country, and people want to work, so like they'll submit. They're like, hey, I don't give a fuck if I'm in Chicago. I'll fucking submit to something in Miami if that's a job, because it. But so anyway, yeah, the process has changed and how you get the work. Um, but I will say this. Um, the the piece that you mentioned that won the Emmy, and to be clear, the award goes to the producer, so the actor doesn't get to keep the award. Which I got to see it and play with it and touch it and like, wow, this is so cool, But I had to give it back to my friend who's the producer, and but for that particular one, it just because she knew me and was like, "Oh, you'd be great for this," and she called me up, and she's a wonderful, brilliant mind, and she obviously has good taste. So she was like, "I think you'd be great for this. Are you available such and such date?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm available." It's funny because when she said that to me, I was just ready to do it, really just to help her out, just because I like her, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I wasn't even thinking about the pay structure or what we're doing. It was just like, I want to I want to work with somebody that I like. Like, sometimes these things can be all day, sometimes they can be multiple days. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're like around a bunch of people that you can't stand. I mean, sometimes it just happens that way. That's just life. That's work. But with her, it's like, oh, I like being around her. She's awesome. We're friends. And I learned about the time and the structure and the pay, all that stuff later. And I just said yes immediately. And it turned out to be one of the easiest jobs I've ever done in my entire life, primarily because everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody knew what they wanted. The director knew exactly what he wanted. He casted the right people, of course, and he had a good crew. I mean, my role. I was in and out in like less than 3 hours. I came in.
Wow.
I used my own wardrobe, which is rare. Normally, that's not the case. But and the person that she casted me with, my scene partner, I never actually even met her before. And it just goes to show how good she was too. That like she can just work with a stranger, and we can bang out the scene really quickly. And we tried a few different things actually. We tried it a few different ways because like at the end of the day, it's a 2 minute PSA, but in the wrong hands, that 2 minute PSA could take days. My role, I was in and out in less than 3 hours. I mean, I remember like I had lunch, went like an early lunch, went there, left, and I could like go back to my day. I didn't even really interrupt my day that much. I could like go do some writing, go do some working out. And another big thing that I do is I do a lot of editing. I do a lot of editing for corporate commercial videos and stuff like that. So like that's really time consuming. So some days, to answer your early question, some days I just got to do like 10 hours of editing straight. Like I just can't get up from the computer. Can't go anywhere. I need to. Or if I'm working on one of my films, that could take weeks. So it's just like weaving all these things together. So like having a job like that won the Emmy, for me, that's the perfect job, to be able to work with people you want to work with, and they all know what they're doing. They're all professionals. This woman was totally comfortable being with a complete stranger, doing like, the attempted kissing scene with a complete stranger, like it's like sometimes that can be awkward, like, oh, you have to kiss a complete stranger, even if you're auditioning for it, like kiss a complete stranger in an audition room. It's like, okay. I mean, I'll do it, but
So,
it's like, let's be honest, it's weird, Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely weird. So, out of curiosity, so then how do you change your mindset, or how do you handle the aspects of failure when failure does happen?
Um, I mean, I just try not to be as emotionally involved in that regard because I mean, it does sting when you want to do something. Um, like, let me say this: there's few things that I genuinely want to do in that world. It's really just I want to work. I enjoy the work itself. Like, if I was auditioning to be like the new kid in the Mission Impossible series and I didn't get it, then I'd be upset. You know, that's something I would want
Yeah.
to do. You know, like it's like
Yeah.
fucking be in a movie with Tom Cruise. Hell yeah, I'll audition with against a million other people, and of course I'm not gonna get it. You
Yeah.
know, that's fine. Then I would be hurt. But if it's just something like just to like keep working, I enjoy the process. I love the process of making a film. I love the process of making a commercial. And you know, when it's something small like a commercial, it's work. You know, it's like we have bills to pay. Rent's due. These loaves of bread ain't cheap anymore. You know, so it's
Nope. Nope.
so
Nope.
it's just like just keep
So
working. You know, I try to think of it that way. You know.
so speaking of films, there's a film you did that I'm kind of curious about. It's called Ronin: The Joy of Believing a Better World is
Mm-hmm.
Possible. Can you tell me a little bit about that movie and that process?
So the movie. David Lynch has this great quote where every time he's asked like what his movies mean, he like refuses to answer, um, and they always ask him his feelings about it, and he says, "Well, um, I don't want to speak for the movie. Like I let the movie do the talking." But at the same time, you still have to like promote the work and talk about it. So
Correct.
I don't want to say what it's about. Um,
Okay.
but I will say this. Um, for me, it's really kind of it's just the joy of making it, which is so awesome. And the best I can tell you is that it exists as a work of art. Like it doesn't exist as a product. So like we were talking earlier about like this thing is not really to be sold or like commodified in any way. It's just kind of like I had a set of feelings and a set of ideas, and it's like okay, well let's put this thing together and make a movie out of those set of feelings and ideas, and like essentially make a movie out of something I see in my head. You know, like one of the things that I am most proud about is I made a lot of those types since I was like a kid, and I feel like this is the best one in that regard because it's the closest. It looks the closest on the big screen as it does in my head, and I'm just
Okay.
so proud of that. And Yeah, I mean the title kind of gives away some things in terms of the themes and the kind of a bit of the journey that the character goes on. Um, but it is hard to answer that question because yeah, given reality is like what does it mean? I mean, Fellini has this. I'm like quoting all these great directors, to I don't like make myself seem intelligent. But Fellini has this great quote where he did this interview and he was like asked like what his movies mean, and he was like, I don't know. Like the director knows least of all of anybody of what the of what the movie means, like, and I kind of feel that way too. Like, uh, I mean, there are things that I've watched, and I was so certain that this movie meant this thing, and it made me feel a certain type of way, and then somebody else will look at it and have a completely different perspective on it.
Yeah.
And at first, it's kind of like you start debating and arguing, like, well, it means this, oh, it means that, and in reality, it's like, no, it's okay that you guys have different viewpoints because you're different people, you have different purviews on on everything in life, and so
Yeah.
for me, it's like if 100 people watch this movie, Ronin, or The Joy of a Better World, Believing a Better World is Possible, I hope they have 100 different feelings and 100 different perspectives on it, and myself included. I've watched it on the big screen 4 times now. And I don't really count the editing. That isn't really count. It's like by then you're like sick of it, but we played at Film Slam at Jen Vargas's event, which was really awesome. That was the
Yep.
first time. Anna was with me for that, and pretty much the whole movie really came from her. So the idea that we could just sit there and like watch that come to fruition years later was just like a really special moment for me personally. Oh yeah, she's right here. Yeah, so that's a little sticker for my phone. Um, But the second time we played it at College Park Gallery. Jim Hobart, who's just a wonderful person, really accommodated us and basically set up the art gallery like, a small little kind of black box theater almost. And that was really great. A lot of family members of two of the cast members came, and some friends came out. It was really fun. It was cool to have your movie played in an art gallery. That's just awesome,
Yeah.
And then we played it at this Science Center after the 11th anniversary of Nerd Nite back in March. And then another time when we were, I was setting up somewhere like to test it out, and I played it. So I've seen it on screen 4 times, and every single time that I've played it, I feel a different way, which is so fascinating to me because there were even things that I forgot that I did in the movie, that I put in the movie that I came up with, that as watching it, I'm glad that I forgot that because I began to like look at it as an audience member and less as a filmmaker, and less about like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that, and more of like just experience it. And I experienced it, and every time it was a great feeling. Every time. I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of sick of it, like watching it, but I'm so proud of it, and I've never really felt that way about a movie that I've made. I did it with a previous film a couple years ago, but that film was so like sad, like emotionally sad inducing, like that it didn't like it was like hard to watch, But this is a bit more of like a peaceful kind of experience, It's just like, and someone said it to me actually. Someone that saw it at the after Nerd Night at the Science Center was like, I don't know what to say about it, but it made me feel very like at home, or like I think she said homely. And I was like, thanks. That's interesting feedback. Because I always ask the audience. We do like a Q&A afterwards, but I never say, it's more so like, how did it make you feel? That's usually what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about kind of like surveying that, because that's fascinating to me.
What is so? How long is the film? And 2 is like, will people be able to like? Will it ever be? Will you upload it anywhere for people to be able to see it, or anything like that for others to be able to see it if it's not in theater, in film or theater?
That's a great question. I don't. I honestly don't know. I would like to do more screenings, but outside of festivals, there are really not that many opportunities to play a movie. I mean, we could just do more at the previous venues, like Film Slam was at Museum of Art, and at College Park Gallery with Jim. And I don't know. We could just. I considered that when I finish these next 2 movies that I'm working on, to play a couple of them together, because they're all so short. So to answer your other question, Ronin's only 22 minutes long. And I have another one that's 15 minutes, and another that I could play that's close to 20. So I mean, we could just kind of make a day out of it, or an evening out of it, and just play a couple of movies and have an event in that respect. But I'm not sure. I don't have anything planned right now. I'm just focused on finishing. I'm actually working on a movie. Actually, this is from the movie about Anna. This is actually a shot from the movie. I always keep footage from the movie.
Good Deed.
Yeah, Good Deeds. Yeah. Which is kind of like a documentary. I don't like calling it that, because I don't really like documentaries in a general sense. The format kind of bores me at this point, because everything you see online is like a documentary. Everybody with a phone, anytime when you're discussing something, it feels like they're doing a documentary format, which is great for content. But in terms of like putting something on the big screen, I want more. I want like Werner Herzog, like going to the deeps of the Amazon or something, and like finding something out, like that to me is what a hard-hitting documentary. I mean, if you look at like Scorsese's early career, a lot of those kind of hard-hitting documentaries inspired him. That's why movies like Mean Streets and Taxi Driver feel so real, because he shoots them in a way, the same way that Werner would have shot a documentary in the 60s. And like a lot of those guys, like John Cassavetes, people like him, so the documentary format on film, in cinema, it just kind of got kind of weak, and it's like all the tricks and tropes are so overused and they're everywhere. So what I'm doing with Anna, I try to take a different perspective on it, and I'll give you a little teaser on that. Basically, the movie takes place in one single day, in a more condensed period of time. Now we cover more things, like you see footage from things from before and some things that happened afterwards, but the events of the movie, the story of the movie is just one day, and it's all real footage. It's like one very big day for her. So that's kind of what the movie, what's in the movie. And we're documenting it, but again, I try not to call it a documentary. But yeah, I'm just really focused on finishing, good deeds. I like to keep footage of whatever I'm working on close to me, like in front of me, so I'm always looking at it. And this is one of my favorite shots from the movie. And so yeah, I'm just focused on finishing the stuff, and
Okay.
hopefully we'll have some plans to do some events, maybe some festivals too. I'm also iffy about festivals. Festivals are kind of like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like a waste of time. They just kind of like shove a bunch of movies together, have them play back to back, no discussion, no lead in. The mood is all wrong, the venue's wrong, and it's just like, why are we wasting time for this? I just paid the fees to
Yeah.
get in. All my friends bought a ticket, and now we're just gonna like, it's just like a waste,
Watch it and then yeah. No, I got you. I got you. Um, Ricardo, you do so much in the community. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of being involved in the community?
I was just at a 4th of July party yesterday, and the topic of bikes came up because I was very heavily involved in getting the bike share program started here in Orlando. And at that party, I was thinking about how like it's just funny how like when we were trying to do this thing 10 years ago with Sarah and Peter and all that, and there was so much pushback that we used to get, and now I can't go anywhere without tripping and falling over a fucking bike or a scooter or one of those like skateboard things, and it's like people literally from local government would say that that's never going to work here, it's never going to happen. Literally, like 10 years ago, they would say that. And I'm looking at one right now. I'm looking at the Lime scooter. People zooming by all the time. And I'm like, we totally changed the face of this city and its local economy and how people commute. We still need to do a lot more because public transit is a fucking nightmare. I'm somebody that loves public transit, which is why I was always so supportive of the bike share initiative, because one of the reasons why public transit doesn't really work very much is because of the connections. Like, you have a few things that happen and they're not connected. Like, the reason why traffic is a problem is because everybody's going in the exact same way. You need to have options. You can't just build more lanes. You're just gonna have more traffic. And
Yeah.
the major cities of the world have realized that 30, 40, 50 years ago. Somehow America's major cities are still behind. Like the Sunrail station the Maitland Sunrail station is about to close because the ridership is so low. But guess what? No one wants to go to that station because there's nothing to do there. There's no connections to anything. The Sunrail doesn't go to the airport. It doesn't go to any major malls. I don't think it goes to any major movie theaters. There's no skate parks. So all the things that people like to do, it doesn't take you there. You have to take the Sunrail to a bus or to a scooter. And then what if the bus doesn't come on time? What if there's no scooters at the station? Why is it important to learn to be a part of the community? Is because people can get up in arms about that Maitland headline, and they very well should be, but they should understand why that's happening. And being a part of the community, when I saw that headline, I knew exactly what the problem was, and I have an idea of what the solution will be. I mean, I'll keep that to myself for now, but that it's very easy to kind of connect all the dots when you're already plugged in to the things that are happening. And it doesn't take a hell of a lot more time. It doesn't take a hell of a lot more knowledge. It's just being on top of things that are happening in your local area, So it's very important to answer your question. Totally. Very, very, very important.
I love that. I love that. What's been the best advice you've been given or that you live by?
My father, who trains, does boxing training. He has for very, very, very many years. When he was very, very young, he was working. He was training at a famous gym in New York, where famous gym in terms of famous people that come through there. I think Mike Tyson had been through there and stuff when he was young. And he had asked his trainer, who had worked with some pretty important people. He was like, what's the secret? And the guy says, you want to know what the secret is? Want to know what the secret is? Go to sleep. Rest. Rest is the most important thing. If you want to be good, you got to rest. So my father heard that from his famous trainer. My father told me that, and I have lived my whole life by that. That's exactly why I am such a mess all the time, because I'm not getting enough rest. So, but no, yeah, that's the best advice I ever got. I don't always follow it, but It's you have to rest. And I tell the people all the time. I tell it to Anna too all the time. I keep showing the picture. Yeah, I tell it to her because I mean her days are like 14-hour days sometimes, you know, and she's up early, you know, in bed late. Like it's like you're just working. You got to rest. Eventually, there's going to be a burnout, you know. So, yeah.
And obviously when it comes to this, like Anna, and obviously you can kind of talk a little bit about Anna and all the things that she does, but like in her role being a government, being, you know, working, she's a person of the people, so she is like, I can only imagine her mind and what, there's always something that can be done. So and in that sense I could see where that's like a never ending cycle for them. It's kind of like, it's like very similar to a small business in the sense that you're kind of like always thinking about it because it's your baby,
Yeah.
and you want to help, and you want to be able to do the proper things,
And
and
if you care about the job,
so
you're
I
always
can
playing
only
catch up.
imagine.
Always playing catch up.
Correct.
And they get a lot
Yep.
of critiques about, you know, like state representatives, which is what she is. They only make like 30K a year. I mean, that's like right above poverty. I think that's equivalent to like $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, if I'm not mistaken. And think about all the things that she does. Now, the justification for that is, well, they're only in session for like a couple months out of the year. Well, she may be in session for a couple months out of the year, but those constituent services happen every day. They're getting calls, they're getting emails for this, that, and the other almost every day, sometimes overwhelmingly
Yeah.
too much. So they're helping people all the time. Then they have their staff, you know, and all this stuff. And then also, like, when you're somebody that's more in demand or somebody that's more public facing, people constantly always want something from you in a broader sense. So, like, you're always on, you're always working. And to do all that work and get such a small amount of pay, it's like you have to really love what you're doing, and you have to really love the impact that it makes. That's why so many people in government, particularly local government, have second jobs. Like this
Yeah.
government is their part-time job. Most of them are like business owners, or they're personally wealthy, or you know, I believe Regina Hill was a nurse. You know, like people have other jobs they do that they can make enough money without this, you know, and they can just show
Yeah.
up to that. And it's funny because I would argue because she's, you know, Anna's not personally wealthy. She does have another job, but it's still like an incredible commitment of time. And you know, people talk about what a great job she's doing and how busy she is, which is true, both on both counts. But you know, just a little bit of behind the curtain that I get to see, it's even more than that. And that's kind of what I want to show in the movie. You know, I want to kind of really drive
Yeah.
that home in the film. Is that like it's you think she's working hard? Trust me, it's more than that. Like it's a lot more than that. You know, like it's
Yeah.
just a lot.
When you're not doing film, working out, eating peanut butter sandwiches, acting, I know one of the things you love is ice cream. So I kind of wanted to get an idea of, do
Yeah, I
you
told
have
you
like
that fact.
a go-to flavor, or do you got a place? I know you like Greenery Creamery, but I'm kind of curious, like what are your like, tell me about your ice cream love. Do you have a particular flavors that you like, and then where do you go enjoy ice cream?
So Greenery obviously is my number one. They're great. They do. They make a great product, and I've just been in love with it since the first day that I had it, which is actually 6 years ago to the week. Actually, it was July of, I know, their birthday's coming up, but I was there before the birthday. But anyway, yeah, 6 years they've been there, and I'm a huge fan. My favorite flavor from them is speculous. It's kind of like a vanilla-ish kind of flavor. Like it's got like a, I mean, I know vanilla makes it sound bland, but it's not bland in any way. But it's like a vanilla kind of base. I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's terrific. It's one of my favorite flavors. Uh, they also have a sister company called Sampaguita, which is a more Filipino
Yep.
themed ice cream. You know, so they've really kind of taken their culture and let it kind of drive home the product, and it's wonderful. The whole experience is really great. The interior of the shop, it's really a really beautiful place. And again, they also make a good product there. And they also have great vegan options too. Like I don't
Yeah.
necessarily live a vegan lifestyle, but I do eat a lot of vegan foods, primarily just because I want to reduce my dairy. I don't want to have so much dairy all the time, and just having that option is great. And a lot of places don't give you that option. And I've been eating their stuff for so long. I don't want to say the other company, but I had ice cream from another ice cream shop, and it made me kind of
Ice cream
sick.
place.
It made me like it didn't
Yeah.
feel like I felt like I wanted to throw up. Like I was so used to like
Yeah.
this good quality product that I've gotten used to over the last many years, and now I'm having this other one, and it's like, ugh, you know. But yeah, they're great. I don't know what really drives my love for ice cream. I think I'm just still 8 years old inside of my body. You know, like the inside out. Like I have like an 8-year-old personality inside my head or something. I don't know. Ice cream is just the best. You know.
What advice do you have for someone wanting to start something?
Um, Prepare. You know, I was a Boy Scout as a kid, and that's our motto: is be prepared. You know, be prepared. You know. So
Yep.
I would say prepare. Is, you know, no matter what I'm working on, like I definitely, I, I spend like so much time just thinking about my ideas before I even write them down. Like even something as simple as like putting on an event and like what I want the next season to look like. You know, like, oh, I'm gonna do this event here. Like it all has to like connect. Like there has to be like a long form narrative. For me personally, not everybody has to do it that way. Like the other cities don't do that, and they do their own thing and they go from one event to one event to one event. That's not really how I do it. And honestly, the way they do it seems a lot less stressful. So maybe I'll consider that sometime in the future. But I just don't. I can't imagine myself walk into a situation not having so much, like just not having enough ammo to protect myself. You know, if something gets hairy. You know, like even when I'm doing like a monologue or something, and I was kind of mentoring my kid who's doing the Nerd Nite Next Gen, for the teenagers. And she was like, "Oh yeah, you just get up there and you talk." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. That's all written." Like I think about that for a while. Sometimes I spend a whole day thinking about it, and then the next day I'll start writing things down. I'm like, "Oh, I got to connect this, connect that, connect this," and then the day of happens, and I switch it all up. I invert the whole thing, or I'll like add in something that happened to me that day, and I'll have to rewrite the whole thing. But even so, I'm still prepared. I can still fall back on that previous thing, and yeah, it's never off the cuff. I mean, I would say prepare for everything, and it also alleviates any type of anxiety you might feel. Like I'm somebody who's been doing a lot of these things for most of my adult life, and I still get a little nervous. But when I'm prepared, I don't feel that feeling at all. Like I feel completely shielded from anything that could potentially happen to me. So
I like that. Where can people follow you, and where can they learn more about Nerd Nights? And then also kind of be able to follow you to, and obviously it'll all be in the show notes. So I'll get that from you as well.
yeah.
But just in case as they're listening to you right now and they want to they're scrolling on their phones and they're like going on Instagram, like looking up stuff, where can they follow you? How can they support
Yeah.
you and also Nerd Nite Orlando?
So the biggest thing I would say is the spelling of Nerd Nite. Uh, Nerd Nite is NERDNITE Orlando, and obviously all the other Nerd Nites are spelled also NITE.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. Everything is my name, like all my handles are my name and that kind of thing.
And isn't it the Ricardo Williams?
For my email, yes, and that's only because
Yeah.
that name is actually very popular. There's actually a lot of people that have the same name as me. There's one guy who's a famous track star from Jamaica. Another guy, Ricky Williams, that played ball for Miami, I believe. A boxer named Ricardo Williams, whose father actually is also famous because he was like a drug runner. He was like a legendary drug runner. And I guess the son was also possibly implicated. So like when you Google my name, all these other things that are like so wildly different all come up first, which is so wild. And for whatever reason, I was able to get my name handle for all these things before those people. But the one thing I couldn't get was my email, my Gmail, back in like 2008, years ago. Yeah. And I had to get the Ricardo Williams because of that. And I think the guy that got it is a photographer. I'm not sure if he's the boxer or the drug runner or the track star, but,
I feel like that's a movie, like where you like someone mistakenly thinks it's you, and you're actually not the person and the dad and everything.
That happened to me. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Samira Madhani from Stax, who used to be Fat Merchant, I worked with them. And I guess in the day when I like they heard about me to the day the next day where I came in for the interview, they had Googled me, and yeah, she was like, so this.
They Googled the wrong Ricardo
Yeah, she was like,
Williams.
is there some things like, is this you? Is there some things you want to talk to us about? Like, and I was like, no, 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 that happens all the time. It's not me. That happened to me with acting too. I had a casting director ask me that too. They like Googled me right in front of them one time, and they looked
Yeah.
the name up, and they were like, is this you? Because all the guys are pretty dark skinned. So like, I mean, if there's like a blurry photo on the same name, you're like, well, maybe that's him. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's not me. Yeah, I've never had any
That's
drug
crazy.
charges. I'm not a famous track
No, that's
star. I'm not a
crazy, dude.
boxer. Although that would be kind of cool of a fucking rap sheet to have. Like,
Yeah.
but no, that's not me.
I gotcha. Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and spend some time with me, share your story. I definitely always appreciate when I get to see you because you're out and about all the time. So I definitely appreciate that. And I just appreciate you taking a lunch break with me, man. I really do. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Ricardo Williams of Nerd Nite Orlando for being on and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check him out online, check out his work, give him a follow. You'll see all that stuff in the show notes. If you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe. If you want to go support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Do some shopping, tell your friends. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.